What's going on, agents? It's LtBuzzLitebeer, and in today's Division video, I felt it was finally time to jump in on the ongoing discussion of what is to become of our game. Both MarcoStyle and SkillUp have weighed in on this topic with individual videos on their channels, and like them, I wanted to give the latest state of the game address time to sink in. Now, let me quickly clear the air. I will not be leaving the Division, and it will still be the focus of my channel. I have invested quite a lot of time into my weapon review video series, tutorials, and build guides, and my channel has seen explosive growth from this one game alone. However, I felt it was time to weigh in on how Marco and SkillUp both reacted to the weak State of the Game Year 2 announcements, and also give you my reactions. First up is Marco, who through his video has made it clear that he is done with the Division and is moving on. Marco feels that the Division is not moving forwards, especially in the area of PvP, and none of the issues that have plagued the PvP portion of our game have or will ever be addressed in the near future. Now let me chime in and say that I, for one, am saddened to hear that Marco is leaving the Division community, as he is a quality content creator and his tutorials and best-in-slot build guides are produced on an extremely high level. However, Marco represents the top 1% of players that play the Division that are ultra competitive and focus in on their own little microcosm, which is PvP. Are there currently issues with the programming in PvP in the Division? Absolutely. Will the legacy bugs like the side strafing mechanics ever be fixed? Probably not. Has the Final Stand game mode essentially killed PvP in the Dark Zone? Yes. And finally, are there flawed mechanics in the Final Stand game mode, including spawn camping and issues with the queue times and matchmaking? Abso-fucking-lutely. And now you see why Marco is leaving. The PvP portion of our game is flawed at its core and will always be, and this is where I have a theory. The Division was never meant to have a relationship of PvE and PvP peacefully coexisting and making players from both sides of the fence happy. The Division was always to be a PvE-centered game, with PvP as more of an afterthought, almost as if the devs had finished up the campaign and open world and had decided to add in PvP to try and put in that element to their game. I don't think the Dark Zone was ever really meant to mix PvE and PvP together, but was thrown together late in the development phase as the game neared final testing. Even if you look back at the E3 trailer for the game and how it portrayed PvP, it was insanely different than what we actually have in the DZ. Now, if we had PvP like that in the E3 trailer, I think many more players would have been attracted to our game and would still be playing it to this day. Let's face it, most online shooters are centered around online multiplayer, with short single-player campaigns designed to try and appeal to a broad spectrum of the player base. Recent titles like Destiny and Battlefield 1 show you how popular and lucrative this business model can be. Just enough story and campaign to keep the single-player crowd happy, and then cash in on the online multiplayer with DLCs, paid expansions, new emblems, gear, and weapons for competing in special events. You all have seen how this business model works. Ubisoft and massive studios reached that crucial stage in their game development for the Division where they had the campaign pretty much finished up and then turned to each other and asked, how do we include PvP? The conservative thing to do would have been to quickly develop a PvP-only game mode that used already programmed portions of the map that allowed players to combat in a controlled environment completely segregated from the PvE community, i.e. what we have now in Final Stand. Instead, the devs decided to try something bold, a brash design choice, and went with a PvE environment that allowed players to engage in PvP combat if they chose to do so. You need to remember back to the time that the Division was in development and take a look at how the game DZ was doing. It was something completely new and different, as it lumped players into random servers with nothing and allowed them to forage from the environment and kill and pillage from other players in the server, all while combating NPCs that were trying to kill them. Sound familiar? It's our DZ, just reimagined into Manhattan, and to incorporate it into a mostly finished PvE-centric game was a truly bold design choice. However, that design choice backfired, as it was not as popular as they had hoped, and it truly polarized the community. You were either for the DZ or against it, and it really ignited and fostered one of the most toxic PvP environments on record. Jumping back to Marco and how he has had enough with the Division, his little portion of this PvE-centric game is the Dark Zone, and when he sees nothing but continued abuse of design bugs, flawed mechanics, and a game mode that is essentially killed going rogue in the DZ, he has had enough. All I can say is that we have lost a great warrior, and you will be missed, my friend. On the other hand, SkillUp is much more like me than Marco, and still enjoys the PvE portion of this game. We both come from online multiplayer shooter backgrounds, but generally avoid it in the Division due to the mechanics of how it works or doesn't work. Now, I know that SkillUp has many more games of interest other than the Division, but will continue to dabble into our community. However, the emphasis of his channel will be shifting due to the lack of new content coming out year 2 for the Division. I can understand how he felt, as I had much the same reaction. After watching the state of the game where Hamish and Yannick came on and basically stumbled and rambled through some of the new ideas the devs had for year 2, the underlying message that rang through much louder than whatever they were saying on the screen was what they were not saying. They were doing their best to sidestep the fact that there are no new content drops, no big expansions, nothing other than mission modifiers planned for year 2 of the Division. So what this really means is that Ubisoft took a look at the numbers, the polls, the player counts, and decided to hold the Division right here. Almost like they took it out of gear and left it in neutral, still running, but not moving forwards. Reading into this, we can see that Ubisoft is currently allocating large portions of its manpower over to the Avatar game and decided not to invest heavily into expanding the Division. They do still have a live team in place attempting to handle issues when they arise and implement small bug fixes and UI improvements, but nothing earth-shaking. So where does this leave me and the Division? Well, I still enjoy the game, and perhaps it is due to the fact that I do not play every day and for hours at a time. I have an intense work schedule, probably the main reason I have never invested time into Twitch and streaming for my YouTube channel, and I just don't have that strict schedule where I can say to people, hey, I'm streaming, come watch me. I will continue to post regular Division content, including my current project, which is the heavily requested Assault Rifle Full Optimization Guide for Update 1.6. I will also go back through the exotic weapons as they become available and post new weapon reviews as to how they stack up now in Update 1.6. In addition, I have also planned to post another best-in-class weaponry video series for Update 1.6, as well as an occasional build guide, etc. I have also purchased and downloaded Ghost Recon Wildlands and will start bringing missions from that title to my channel soon. I once again want to confirm to you, my loyal fan base, that I am not going anywhere and would appreciate any video shares, retweets, or general referrals to my channel. I'll end this video the same way I always do. Remember, from my channel, likes, comments, subs are loved. Until my next The Division video, this has been LtBuzzLitebeer saying peace out.